Clear to clear this.
Hi Lou, good morning.
Good morning. Let's have a full house. Yeah, now we have another person, but.
It is 9:00, we'll call the meeting to order. We have roll call, please.
Lou Howard.
Here.
Reba Bechtel.
Here.
Vice Chair Michael Davenport.
Here.
Chair Phyllis Adams.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, agenda approval. I think we need to make an amendment here. The ordinance that created us said we're supposed to elect officers in the first meeting of every year. And we didn't do that last time. So I think that should be added. I don't think it's that big a deal, but the ordinance says we're supposed to.
Something I had mentioned to Dylan at the state conference is that the Minor Street Bridge is part of the original historic district. And whether or not it should be considered as for a plaque.
Well, let's stick with what we're on, Bill, first.
Oh, we're saying as an amendment.
I'm suggesting an amendment to the agenda to add election of officers. Anyone have a problem with that?
No.
Should we put it after, just right after,
I don't care where it is,
Okay.
but
That could go.
after conflict?
probably should go early in the meeting.
Okay.
But wherever you want it.
Let's put it after public comment and before conflict, okay?
Okay,
Okay.
so is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I make a motion to approve the amended agenda. And second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Gosh, I don't see any public comment. I don't see any
I don't think
public
so either.
to comment. And then this is where you put in the election.
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as I said, the ordinance that created this board put forth a lot of rules, and one of them was the first meeting of every year was supposed to elect officers. So,
Are you willing to continue as chair?
what else do I have to do?
I nominate Phyllis to continue as chair.
I'll second.
Well, since we're only talking about two officers, are you willing to continue in your capacity?
Yes.
And I would nominate Mark Davenport as vice chair.
I'll second
Okay. I think we have been elected by acclamation, but I'm not sure that
Sounds good.
in these cases that's appropriate. Okay, it's just, you might want to make a note to put that on every January
I surely will.
agenda. Just for the heck of it. Okay, do any of us have a conflict of interest? Minutes? I always read these minutes, and part of it is because we only meet quarterly, but I don't remember a lot of this.
Sure.
So I don't know if it's right or not.
Looks pretty good to me.
I thought so too, but I.
Well, I'm sure it is. It's just that I can't rely on my memory. It's not like a meeting I had last week.
Mhm.
So is there a motion to approve the minutes from January 12th?
I move to approve the minutes from January 12th, 2026.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Those in favor, say aye.
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 Nobody opposed, motion carries. What in the world are miscellaneous updates?
Well, I thought that would just be a good section for updating on things that are going on at sites and facilities. So miscellaneous update number one would be the brass plaques. They're ordered and in construction, but they're not yet complete and delivered. So we will not see them around town yet, but they are coming, so that's nice. I'm hoping that they'll be installed by our next meeting, if not before. And you had mentioned this, Phyllis, that the brass plaques at the Steep Canyon statue have been rehabilitated slightly.
The one that was hanging,
They, yeah, whatever they needed to do to fix that, they fixed that. So,
And did you decide who will be installing the?
Public Works said they have the capacity and believe they can do it no problem. So we had, there's a few of them that we need, poles for, so we ordered the poles that are integrated with the plaques for the sites that need the ground mounted poles, so Public Works will just have to mount them into the ground.
and are these? Okay, what are the poles? I was thinking more like posts, but.
Yeah, it's just like a
Is it wood?
3x3 metal
Yeah.
post.
Kind of
Um,
like a street sign, but maybe a little bit.
right, and not, and nicer looking than like a stop sign, street sign. But,
Everything's better looking than a stop sign.
right, and it'll have it, they do this quite a lot, so it's built so that it's optimized with the angle and whatnot, so you can read a sign most effectively. The other miscellaneous update I had was about the library. This is not so much an exterior change, but they did do the work on the interior of the building that had been affected because of the leak on that western side of the building, southwestern side. But then also there was another issue by the stairs because of some an interior leak, like a pipe or something, so they did that work as well. So the inside is looking a lot nicer. It doesn't necessarily affect this group, but it's good to know that.
It's related.
And they had done enough viewing of the damage to see that it wasn't growing more, so they felt comfortable fixing it, which means it seems like that exterior leak,
They being.
the library, like
Library.
Libby from the library, they had been monitoring to see if anything else was changing. They did the work,
Who did the work?
it's
Contractor?
it's a contractor out of Silver Plume. It's like Silver Plume, yes,
Silver Plume Home Services,
that sounds
I think
right,
so.
yeah.
Tim, I can't remember his last name, he did Central Hotel, he was the contractor.
Right, yes, so, yeah, the library had coordinated those efforts, and so,
I didn't know he was still in this.
so anyway, it's looking better in there, and it appears that the leak was fixed when that work was done, so there's still some work to be done at the library, of course, but
What besides the doors?
doors, and also there's a painting of the trim,
Oh,
and there's a couple of bits of, the facade that, had been patched improperly and things like that, that needs to just be fixed. There's a couple of spots on the backside that we noticed when we had done our tour that, you had the original stone and then it clearly had chipped out and they just filled it with like those sorts of things.
And do we think the doors are gonna be done this year?
That's the goal. I know they received a quote Being Andy received a quote last year, Amy and Ed. We didn't move forward with that. They haven't got an updated quote for this year or bid it out to see who would do it, but
Was it high?
I think last year was something like $12,000.
it was Michael.
Okay.
So I think that it's kind of been waiting, not that the weather's been bad this winter at all, but I think they were sort of waiting to pick that back up.
It'll be interesting when they did them, when we were redoing the library. They removed the doors, had plastic up there for like, a month or 6 weeks.
Right.
Because the company that was doing it, took them to their shop in Denver. It'd be interesting to see what the approach is.
Yes, so there's no concrete plans for that work to be done. But I'll follow up with that and Andy to make sure that that can be moving along.
Summer's the best time.
You can get in touch with Spectrum. They used to have a woodworking division, but then they sold it off. And the guy that was running it bought the business. I'm going on old memory here. But if you could talk to Spectrum, you might get a lead on another guy.
Yeah, let me make a note of that
I
here.
thought I sent you the one too from Gilpin County.
You did.
Yep, so I have both those, so there's at least two, I mean, there's probably more than two firms, because we also have Kowalski, but. That's,
It's not Spectrum, but they could put you in touch, I think. Or I probably have his name somewhere on, if I find it first, I'll send it to you.
well, so those are the only real, anything that's been sort of going on at the site so far this spring. It might be worth, Mike had briefly touched on, the bridge here. Could be a miscellaneous update, Mike, if you wanted to.
No, it's just, in the original nomination that was sent to the National Park Service, the bridge was one of the facilities that was listed
I saw that.
in it, although it's not shown within the boundaries of the district. And so that's one of the things that actually to sort of check and see is, did something happen between the nomination and now as to why the bridge didn't get included?
Changing personnel was one thing, and might have simply slipped through the cracks. I know work's been done on the bridge. But it's not like its alignment was changed or anything.
Right.
And the side pieces, which are what make it worthy, I suppose, not the pavement and the walkways going over it.
Right, and I think it's worth having it noted just because it's just something else for people who live here to know about and for visitors to know about in terms of
Yeah.
the history.
But we can't designate it, we have to ask council to do that. So is that what you're talking about?
Well, I just wanted to bring it up here first because we were dealing with the plaques. But yes, yes, we obviously. have to be
Unless council agrees to add it to our under our purview.
Mhm.
There's some kind of plaque on that bridge there used a long time ago.
I
You remember
remember noticing.
there being a plaque in it sometime?
I don't know.
There's not currently one on it. I
It
mean,
may have been removed when the work was done.
right, if it became I mean, not that you have. If council says it's now a local historic site, then now we have another site at this board to review, but if you were making it, is it worth perhaps having a conversation about whether we should recommend? making
But it is part of a National Register site.
Right,
Well, so is this, well, this building isn't because it wasn't here
right,
at the time,
yeah, this one had to be,
but the library was and Central Hose was. We still went the extra step with that.
And the National Register nomination has a different boundary than what was adopted by city council.
Well, there've been a number of changes made to over time.
Because when it was done, the train was across the street.
Yes. Well, what does everyone think? Is it enough of a big deal that we wanna ask council?
What would it say on the plaque? Well, I mean.
Well, I know that's a valid point.
I don't know the history. of
Minor
it.
Street Bridge, how long, we'd have to do some research, how long it had been there is. I read the original nomination, Mike, but it's been a long time. Do you recall, does it say
It doesn't,
when the bridge was first built?
I don't think it does say when it was built. There was a revisit of the National Register district that occurred 20 years later. And from what was in that report, it looks like there's much more documentation there's documentation supposedly on each building that revisit references. And I had, it's a completely separate matter, I had mentioned to Dylan if he could check in to see if that other documentation is either available here or if it's just at the state.
I would guess it's just at the state.
Yeah, I couldn't, I mean, I only briefly looked and didn't find anything immediately, but I need to revisit it.
Yeah, I don't remember it being in the files when I worked here.
Well, I know at least once I went through everything in that room. Oh my God. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but, and I do not recall seeing anything.
And I just looked at the digital files, so I didn't go back.
Not
and
everything
look at
they
it.
digitized.
Right, well, and we have a grant at the moment to start digitizing everything that's planning related, which we've taken to be quite a broad definition because almost anything can affect planning. But so, you know, the other hope is that perhaps through that process, we find
Well,
some
if it's at the
interesting
state,
documents,
can we not get a copy from the state?
That'd be worth checking into whether or not it's available, or
Yeah,
it may be the type of thing, it's only available if you go there and look at it as opposed to getting a copy of it.
It should be public record. You should be able to get it. I don't know of anything that would be in it that would.
If you go there, they'll make you a copy.
so maybe it's a day for me to make a field trip at some point, but I will reach out to them because I do think that is something that we should have since it.
Well, but to answer Louise's question, until we know that and hopefully can at least get me ideally the name of the engineer and what year. Um, It's, as you say, it's already part of a historic district.
Or the National
And to-
Register nomination.
And to designate it. Why bother to designate it if we're not gonna put a plaque on it? And if we don't have anything to put on a plaque,
Right.
and so it all flows downhill from there. So I think, maybe we can let this matter pend until our next meeting.
But I'll do some research in the interim and perhaps we can make some.
And from historic photos, it looked like there were several, there might have been one or more bridges that preceded it in that location.
Well, all the more reason then to know just how old is it. I know it's been as long as I've lived here,
Yeah, me too. But.
but before that, we don't know. Well, we'll bring that up again at our next meeting. Okay.
I don't have any other miscellaneous updates unless anyone else does. That's the beauty of it, just being miscellaneous.
Yes, that's a
is
lovely word.
Anyone can just add anything they like at this time, so.
Um,
And we have the date set for the cemetery cleanup, right? Do you, off the top of your head, do you remember?
What's
what
that?
day- The cemetery cleanup day, do you remember off the top of your head what day that is?
Yeah, it's May.
May 20th?
Yes, starting at 9 AM, I found it here, so if anyone interested in that, I can get more information.
Okay. This isn't an update, but it brings to mind, Lou, at what point will you know what work needs, you're gonna be able to do this year? Because that technically needs to come through us.
Oh, I did it. I don't have it with me. I brought it at the last meeting, but it's basically what we did, you know, this year. Except for hopefully we don't have to take down more trees that are weed killing.
Well, but
It's, no,
so there's nothing new, I mean,
there's no new
are
project.
there gravestones that need attention this year?
I'm gonna go around and I have
Yeah.
to wait until it's warm.
Well, that's, yeah,
And
that's,
I go up and I survey it all and see if there's any that need to be repaired. And then I do a map and I send it on to.
so then I would ask that it, before anything is ordered, that it come through this committee. So when it's warm weather, hopefully you'll have good weather on your cleanup day.
Well, I mean, this year I could go up early just because
Yes,
there's
you
no
probably
snow.
could have gone up any day this winter.
Yeah, well, there were a few days of
A
this.
few.
But yeah, so normally I can't. even-
So when you-
Because you get up.
When you get your list, however long it or short it is,
Yeah, last year when I went, there were a few tilting ones, so I just kind of have to decide if they really need it done or not, you know.
Yeah, I
tell
don't,
me more, or,
I don't think anyone will question your recommendation, but to be technically correct, it does need to come through us before you
Okay.
work this.
I don't think there's any, broken ones, because usually keep a pretty good eye out on it all winter long, coming in.
I hope so.
Haven't heard of anything. being
Well, it's not like
caught.
we've had a lot of freeze and thaw, and that's a lot of times. The ground will heave up and that's what can cause it, but.
Yeah, we don't really have any, I mean, there's just a lot of work to do, but it's not anything that we're bringing somebody in and paying them to do it, so.
All right. Okay, then moving on to new business. Train shelter discussion. Going.
Sure, so at the last meeting, it was requested that we put together, some information on what has been done to date for the train shelter, what the costs were proposed, and ways to potentially reduce those costs to actually get moving forward on something so that we can get our coach back and protect everything. So I pulled up all the quotes that the Haynes had previously put together, and those quotes back over a year ago now, well, really almost 2 years ago now, was for about $1.4 million, and that did not even include the relocation costs or the cost of rebuilding, like relocating the parking. So that's, as you can imagine, probably another couple $100,000 worth of work of
Easy.
relocating utilities and all those. So it's probably a $2 million project, let's just say. And within that, the structure alone, which was the wooden ramp and viewing platform, and the structure, which was metal, steel construction, was over $750,000. So, which is expensive for a structure to protect the train from the rain and sun and all those things. So that's kind of where we were sitting now. And he said, well, I don't know how we'll ever be able to fund nearly $2 million for this project. So what are some ways to do reduce it? And at the last meeting, we had mentioned this idea of a temporary shelter, which got some pushback because it's like, well, what does temporary really mean? Is it a 2-year plan that you cost the city $100,000? Is it a 20-year plan, at which point it's pretty much a permanent structure, those sorts of things. And so we looked into that some more to get some costs, and I think you are all correct that it doesn't make a ton of sense to figure out some sort of canvas or tent-like structure that would protect this. So what I kind of have been talking with Andy on is, what are some ways that we can just move forward with a permanent structure? And I think, well, number one would be you reduce some cost if you don't have the viewing platform for now and budget it over 2 years. So let's say 2027, we build the structure, 2028, build the platform, and you can budget over 2 cycles. Number two would be to revise the plans to create an all wooden shelter, which should reduce costs slightly. We're actually meeting with Scott Wallace tomorrow. He did structure in the roundabout. He does some of the work on the water wheel, and not for nothing, we'll also have him look at the deck since he'll be right here on site anyway. So that could be kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So we're gonna get a cost estimate and kind of see, can he do it? And then the third way that we could really reduce costs is if we don't actually have to relocate the train. There's some reason why we originally talked about it. One, it pulls it farther from the highway. It also kind of makes it more visible from Colorado, from Minor Street. That's also from Colorado Boulevard, but if it's facing that direction. But that's also very expensive to relocate everything. So is it possible instead of just build it in place? And there's 2 ways of doing that. One would be, maybe Scott says, actually, I can build something that protects without having to get in the way of the lines. That's a question for Excel as well, but Scott can do an
Maybe
initial
even
assessment.
some plexiglass to kind of protect the side or something from the cold.
That's true, and it would still be visible, because I was thinking like you could put like just a wooden wall, then you don't see it from the south side, and it's nice to be able to see the train from the highway, I would guess.
Oh, that's good,
it's an advertising
it's a
piece.
billboard
Right,
for town.
exactly. But then the other thing would be, you know, if they say, well, the lines are in the way, you can't build a shelter here. We do have a underground fund for undergrounding power lines. And the goal long-term is to underground this whole stretch behind the building, both for aesthetic purposes, but also for a potential future parking structure, but since we all know that's further out than was initially planned. If we, instead of undergrounding over that side, if we just underground these lines, our fund might already cover that cost, and then we've started the project. Now you don't have to worry about anything overhead. You can just build whatever structure you want. So I think my goal with this was to just get your feedback on all of that and see if there's any other ideas.
Then you don't have to move parking, you don't have to move the trail.
Exactly, so that would be a huge savings in cost, even if you could just build the Haynes designed metal steel structure for still $750,000, which is outside the city's budgets. At least you don't have to pay the extra several $100,000 for all of that extra work.
One other thing would be to look at doing a simpler design for the shelter. It's a nice looking design, but for example, does the brickwork is it needed, or can it be done in a later phase? But to basically look at how to simplify the design, both in terms of how the roof is designed, as well as the brick as an example of, in terms of an embellishment that could always be done later. And sort of thinking about how this might be phased, and in addition to re-looking at the design, would be sort of exactly what could be a sequence or phases that the project could be broken into. And I think the other thing that struck me in reading the memo was that I guess the key thing is that people would like the passenger car to come back to town, and sort of that's what sort of drives everything, but come back to town without losing the benefit of all of the refurbishment that's taking place.
Right.
And sort of get a better understanding of sort of where does that sit as a priority of getting it back here, because obviously those two are sort of like juxtaposed against each other, because the way of keeping it in its refurbished condition as it stays for an indefinite period in Georgetown.
Right, and then, yeah, that's true, but then it also works against the idea of like, we just spent all this money on refurbishing it, and now it's just sitting, not benefiting. I mean, I guess it benefits us in some way.
No, it doesn't, because they have it completely covered in the way we decided not to.
Right. So, that, yeah, though, you know, the one benefit, I guess, if it stays up one more year is last fall, we ran the train once on the line, and they'd like to do it again for similar events, not necessarily for the public. It wouldn't be part of the Georgetown Loop schedule, but
So I'm wondering if, like, for council to sort of look at what's a target date. In other words, is that 1 year out, 3 years out, 5 years out? And then what will it take to meet the target date? And
Well-
if council is prepared to spend the money to do that.
Until we know how much money we're talking about, it's not fair to ask them to say, we absolutely want this done. If the money comes in and they don't feel like they can afford it, then why did we have them set the target date? I mean, all of what you said is good, but maybe I would reorder it a little bit.
And maybe even phasing it again, like we talked about before.
Yeah, I think phasing it and relooking and revisiting the design itself.
Right.
It could be a simpler structure, and people are not gonna come to look at the structure, they wanna come and look at the train.
The structure.
And so it could be a very simple
Functional.
structure.
It needs to be functional more than fancy.
right,
But not
well,
ugly, not,
Well,
not.
there are extremes.
Yes,
And I know being an architect, we tend to want to make things look nice.
Well, I understand, and some architects want things, their default is to the highest level and the most expensive, and so I wonder about maybe this is a work session topic for council,
Right.
but to talk about a far simpler wooden structure, and to take it back to Haynes and say, this is what we want, now you draw it up, as opposed to tell us what you think we should do.
Right.
And I don't know if council's willing to do that, I don't know. As well as I know them, I don't know how well Haynes would react to that, being told what to do.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason we're hoping to meet, or meeting with Scott Wallace tomorrow, because he has done similar, different projects. This might be a bigger scale than his usual work. But if he says, I can do something very simple, post and beams or construction with, simple roof configuration.
I'd like to ask, what about a shed roof? That would slope toward the interstate instead of the peak? Like they have in the plans.
I think you can find some examples in the historic photos of
Well,
that
I'm not,
type of roof on industrial structure.
I'm wondering. I don't really care if we're breaking ground or doing something that's been done a lot elsewhere. Wouldn't that be simpler? Part of a simpler design? The roof doesn't have to be peaked in order for the design to be simple.
Yeah, a shed roof isn't necessarily cheaper than a gable roof, but it could
Oh,
be.
really? I would have thought it was, okay, that's why I
But
asked.
it's, if you look at it, there's a little complexity they built into the structure holding up the roof. And it seems like that could be simplified. And
Well,
I wouldn't suggest a pole structure, but you go back to the 19th century and there were much simpler versions of barns than what we think of as barns today. And so that would be looking at a simpler type of shed structure.
So when you look at this, Michael, what do you see that could be simpler? Can you like?
Well, I think they've done a number of pieces here that I don't know that you need all of these pieces. That they're showing here in terms of how the roof's being held up. And part of it's a trade-off, and they probably have already discussed this with the engineer. For example, would it be simpler if you just pull the columns all the way out? And so you don't have that type of internal work, and you just have a tie like they show there. I'm just suggesting that
yeah,
it could be a simpler structure than what they've shown. Now, they may have already with an engineer done what's called value engineering and said, no, this was the cheapest way to do it.
Tim and Chris don't look for the least expensive way to do anything.
But you could get down to something that is essentially just poles or columns supporting the perimeter of the roof. And there are different ways of doing the roof, including pre-constructed trusses, wooden trusses. But again, that's basically going back and saying, okay, this is the budget we need to work within. What can you make work within this budget?
Which is kind of a different way of saying what I was suggesting. Um,
I think it's a staff conversation though, don't you, with whoever they're talking to. They have to be specific on a
Well-
staff level to take it so that it is something that's worth bringing forward to council that they
I
can
think-
actually act on.
A decision needs to be made then. And whether Andy would make it as administrator or get a general nod of the head from council or a vote, I don't know which, to say, we are willing to spend $500,000. Then you go back to Tim and Chris, because even if Scott builds it, there still have to be plans. Somebody's got to draw them out.
Right.
And one other thing is looking at the possibility of matching grants, and one of the things that I thought of is the descendant of the parent company, whether or not it's worth contacting BNSF. Because that's, right, because Burlington CD&Q owns CNS. It became Burlington Northern and it's now part of BNSF. Do they at all consider it as being, this was one of their, preceding railroads?
Well, that's probably worth laying another something or other on Dylan's plate, which I think is what would happen, if they went for that.
They have a big budget, that's fine, it's just,
Yeah,
things
it gets
take a little, but things just take a
bigger
little
and bigger and
longer.
bigger.
What
Well,
I'm saying is, is it worth looking into fundraising?
Well,
It just
I,
takes longer to do.
I think it might
each
be,
thing
but
like
still,
that.
we can't do anything until we have a dollar figure.
Right.
So if council says we're willing to spend 500,000. And it could be a matching grant, then we've got 500,000 committed to use as a match. Now we can do a whole lot more. So I think that's a valid consideration.
Yeah, it seems like the next.
But the first step, we have to know, what is council willing to spend, knowing that they may be paying for 100% of the project, or we might find some grants.
Mhm.
What are they willing to put up for? And that puts the city a bit more. Now, I don't wanna say on the spot, but it lights a fire under them if they will commit to spending whatever. 500,
Right.
300,000, whatever it is. This is what we have to work with now. How much can we get for that, and what kind of grants are out there? We could use that money as a match and
Mhm.
yada, yada,
But yeah,
yada.
until we know, I mean, I think there's kind of, tomorrow when we meet with Scott Wallace, we'll kind of say, what's the simplest design, can you even do it, what would it take to do it, and then what do you think the cost is, I guess, and then once we have all that, or we have a few suggestions, maybe we need multiple people to come out to talk about what a wooden structure would take. Then we could, it seems like the next thing we need to do is to talk to council about what
Well,
they're actually. willing to
I
do.
mean, you've already got your meeting tomorrow with Scott. Regardless of what else we decide.
Sure,
But I really think if we don't know what council's willing to put into this, it doesn't matter what Scott says. It doesn't matter what Haim redesigns.
right,
So certainly your meeting tomorrow, and I think it's great to have him look at the deck while he's here too.
right,
But I think the next thing after that is,
get it in front of council and see what.
and
just
what are,
expressed.
what are they willing to commit to?
Well, and that's, I suppose it's also a good point, because if the wooden structure right now is even too expensive, because they say we really can only budget this much next year.
Well,
Then maybe we have to look at we have to go back to this. How much does it cost to get a building temporary structure, Margaret had sent over, there's like a lot of kind of metal, steel buildings, kind of carport-esque buildings that are prefab that wouldn't look as good as a permanent structure, certainly. But if you say, well, they're only willing to commit $50,000 more than,
And that's likely to be the cheapest structure. It's gonna be prefabricated metal.
right, and it's probably certainly not the aesthetic we're going for. The historical structure.
but if temporary means 5 years, if they were to agree to that definition of temporary.
But
Then-
also with a phased in, putting together the permanent structure in phases during that time would also be.
There's also quite a bit of work that has to be done before even starting the structure. It's all the site preparation and whether it's moving the utility lines or moving the train. And so there's all quite a bit of work. It's a substantial amount of money that's gonna have to be spent even before building the structure.
The lines for undergrounding, three options, don't build it there. Bury the line, or get lucky enough for Excel for once in its corporate life to say, oh, go ahead, do what you want, that'll be fine. They don't do that.
Yeah.
And work. Personally, I think I was intrigued with the idea of flipping the train.
Hmm.
I think that's great. But we're talking, we don't have the money. And so what if we flip it, then we can't protect it? So what? That just compounds
I
the
agree with
financial
you.
problem.
Leaving it there, to me, is not a big issue.
Yeah, it's not the end of the world. I think if,
No.
you know, if someone were to leave the city a couple million and say, spend it on the train, yes,
Yeah.
go for it. Let's flip that
Yes.
sucker and let's do
But
everything.
it's okay, I think it's okay there, I really do.
Well, I think it's okay there. It would be cool to have it facing out, but we can't afford it, and I'm not gonna fall on my sword over moving it.
No.
And that's an actual location of the tracks, whereas the plan, it looks like it's been moved a little off of where the tracks were. If it's moved on the location shown on the plans.
Well, the line came across, that's why it ended up over there. They just stopped it there.
Right, although the Sandware maps show it being straight and they're showing it being curved where they're putting it.
Well, I don't think that's the end of the world either, even if we flip it. I'm not so concerned about that. What intrigued me about is not whether it was on the regular line or not, but the fact that it faced Minor Street.
Although a straight building is cheaper than a curved building.
Well,
Yeah, that's true, because this was also proposed as a,
I would just tell you that putting the train from there to here was done over a period of time with a bunch of volunteers. A little bit of city equipment to pull it, but it was all volunteers. I remember being here one day and watching it and thinking, oh my goodness, I hope they don't break it. That's, so I think the meeting with Scott Wallace, see what he thinks. He's not gonna be able to give you a price. He's gonna have to, you know,
right,
sit at home and give it some thought. Does he even want the job and what would he charge you to do it? But I really think we need to get to council and get at least, they can't really make a commitment because they can't make multi-year commitments.
sure.
But to get some kind of an idea, you know.
Yeah.
Because they do all talk about how much they want it back, but
Right,
But I think they're gonna want some figures to work with too, before they can.
well, they might, but I'm not sure that would be fair of them, and I won't be the one talking to them, which is probably a good thing. But I would, you know, we need some idea.
right, yeah.
We
and-
can go on getting estimates and ideas, and this one's 750,000, and that one's 250,000, and the next one is somewhere in between. Which one did we bring to you?
Right, and we're just
Should we
throwing-
bother bringing the 750 if we know you're only willing? If you're looking in the ballpark of 500,000, I would think they would hope to be more fair to staff than that.
Yeah, it would be difficult to just keep throwing darts at a
Yes.
moving dartboard is the sort of thing, so if there is a way of saying, you know,
I think we need to at least talk, you need to at least talk to them.
right,
And if it's gonna be on the agenda for the work session, I'll probably be interested enough to come and listen. And if they have additional questions, whatever, but
sure,
we need
well,
someone to plant the idea in their head that we're serious about this, but we need their help and their support.
mhm. Right, well, and we might actually be able to get this on the next agenda for the 27th, because right now I've heard it's a relatively light agenda, so it could be
And you're talking work session?
work session agenda, so it could be as soon as 2 weeks from now. Or it could be in May, or depending on how the work session looks, but I'll keep everyone updated so that if you want to attend in person or jump on with them
Yeah.
online and just watch, that you could do so. That sounds like, that is the perfect, I mean, that's sort of what we need to do, right? Is why spend a bunch more time figuring out,
Only to have them say once again, oh, we can't afford that.
right? Yeah, because if ultimately if one of those like steel prefab buildings is what we can afford right now, and their goal is we want it back next year, then that might be sort of necessity breeds that happening, and then we have to just plan for a longer future. I don't know how much those would cost. Certainly cheaper than a permanent living structure.
Might still have questions about power line.
Right. Very true.
Then, can you and I discussed this business of, you may remember the people from the Loop coming to our meeting and telling us, no, the work on the engine could be done on site. And now they've apparently changed their mind.
They want to take it up.
Which would, of course, add tremendously to the cost. So,
Right, yeah, they had included that. So we just applied at the beginning of this month for a state historic fund grant for the rehabilitation of the train. And so when we had first started talking about applying for that grant, they had said do the majority of the work on site. Maybe they have to bring a few things up there in the flatbed or something, you know, if they're.
which is not the same as moving the whole engine.
Right, certainly, but then when we received the, I'm sure this is correct. When we received the quote, kind of the detailed budget to put into it, we had noticed that so I can specifically. We noticed that it had included, transport to Idaho Springs display was one of the line items, as well as like documenting locomotive with photos, tag parts, so that it could be rental a telehandler, that sort of thing. So the idea being at that point that it's just going to transport it up. And so it was kind of news to us, and they made it, well, it's just going to be a lot easier and more secure to do the work up there, essentially.
Well, so they're countermanding 180 degrees from what they sat here and told us and assured us. Because I'd always assumed it would have to be, once I knew the asbestos work removal would have to be done here. But once that was done, I've always assumed that it was gonna have to be transported, so I was thrilled to hear that.
Right. Yeah, because.
To get the grant, I would hope they would be questioned about why the change.
Right, yeah, task
What are you
one,
worried about security? Why? Because it's gonna tremendously add to the cost, the transporting two-way.
yeah, it looks like the task one, which is prep for moving to restoration facility, it's within 12,000. Task 10, bringing it back 5,300, so, you know, plus all the other little documentation work, you're looking at least $20,000 just moving it there and back.
Yeah.
Of the project cost.
Well, nothing to be done about it, but I wanted, you and I had talked about it, but I wanted everyone
Right.
to know.
And it will be a little while until we know if we will have the grant or not. Last few cycles have been pretty competitive, and we do also have the city also has an application in Hot Springs for like a phase 2 of their rehabilitation work, so we're sort of in some ways competing, but they're very different projects, so it sort of depends on what's being prioritized, I guess.
Okay, does anyone have anything else? Questions or comments about the train issue? Whether it be the engine or the car, or which way the track goes? Okay. Outreach discussion. At our last meeting, we talked about the types of outreach we might be able to do. And the idea of talking to fourth graders came up, and I said that I would see what I could put together. I think at the time I said I'd write a script. Well, that isn't gonna work. First of all, I'm not gonna memorize something and stand in front of the kids or anybody else. And I don't think any of you would want to either. And just like being on stage in a play and reciting something. Plus, it also occurred to me that you might speak a little differently to a group of fourth graders than you would to the Rotary Club or the Garden Club or whoever else you're talking to. Clearly, for fourth graders, and I've used this example making the point to others, you talk about the water wheel. Charlie Taylor said that the reason he was so successful was he never took a bath and he never kissed a woman. Well, while that comment might be appropriate for both groups, that's where that's where you kind of need to stop with the fourth graders. Because they'll probably maybe giggles. I don't know how fourth graders are these days, but that kind of stuff. So I failed to successfully need to go through the hierarchy of the school and talk to the principal and talk to the fourth grader. Now, apparently there's only one fourth grade room. I assumed we had more kids than that.
Not very many.
I went to the school district's website and looked at the staff for Carlson, and there was only one person listed as fourth grade teacher, so obviously you would take the kids out. The Jackson Monument is right there. So clearly we would go out and look at that. Whether we did anything else, I would leave to the teacher, I guess. Whether we walked into town and saw Central Hose House and the library and maybe over to the water wheel and City Hall. There's no way we can get them to all the sites anyway. So if anyone else has any idea about what kind of outreach, and I would ask you, Lou, where's the Historic Society on its walking tour?
We're done. We published 4 copies. And I had cataract surgery, so I haven't been down there to figure out. So they might have already had ordered one. I don't know. We were gonna look at it, make sure that's what we want and everything that we haven't met. We'll meet.
It's not on the
Next
website or anything.
No, we're trying to make money.
Oh,
It's an actual real local.
I bet you buy the booklet.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So when they talk to people, Janice talked to a few of the merchants, they want to sell it in their stores and, so.
I had kind of hoped that Historic Society and this board could have worked together on that, but that clearly wasn't wanted, I guess.
I don't think it was ever proposed, so
All the work was done. Anyway,
it took us all year.
if anyone comes up with any other ideas, fourth graders and organization, where we might do some outreach. Don't want to preach to the choir, so there's no point in bringing it to council.
I mean, King Murphy probably has it, right? And Georgetown probably has.
And would those kids be really interested in what's in Idaho Springs?
They probably come here, but I mean, they are part of the town.
Well, I would like to try it with Carlson first.
Oh, yeah, for
You know,
sure,
and get
for sure, but I mean, so it would just be a different approach with those two schools, because you could see the water villains.
So if
Then it's a whole bus.
yeah, either way.
Yeah, field trip. I don't know, I remember as a kid, I was always up for a field trip.
Well,
So it'd be a fun field trip, I think, but, you know.
if you think of anything or have a contact with some group, share it, because that's all.
Well, Rotary definitely would be interested. They're always begging for speakers. So anytime you want to talk to them on a Wednesday morning at Marion's.
Are they still meeting at Marion? I thought they were
Yes.
moving.
They're, once a month, they're doing an evening meeting that rotates. The other
Ah.
3 meetings are at Marion's. My wife is in Rotary, so.
No,
She will also be willing to put us on the agenda anytime, so I have a contact. who's my point.
So do I, but it's not a spouse.
Sure.
I think social ethics and garden club are always looking for someone to come in and present, so. But they won't do this summer, but.
Well, I did make a PowerPoint. But all it is the pictures. And under it says like City Hall, 1711 Minor Street. Nothing else to add to it. And I reopened it and played with it a few times and I never saved the changes because I couldn't really think of how would you make this more interesting or more valuable or. The only thing you can do with, if you've ever done a PowerPoint, you can make the slides, they can come in this way or they can fade out or that kind of stuff I can play with. but
Did you include the text from the Flex?
No, because my thought, I was thinking, when I was doing it, I was thinking 4th graders and they're not gonna sit and read something that's on a screen. But the wording from the plaque, the wording from the preservation plan would be part of the unscripted script, whatever the speaker would say. You've got to have information to back it up, but I mean, most of them would, all the kids are gonna know what the library looks like and oh, I've seen that. I remember seeing that building. I never knew what it was or something like that. But when you talk about Powder House, Blue Ribbon Tunnel, most of them aren't. A lot of people, never mind 4th graders, are not gonna know.
I don't know how much they will care about it as far as, the specifics. I think they're gonna be interested, like say, Kate, how many of you like trains? You're gonna get a big response. You give them a postcard that's got our train on it. I don't know,
Yeah.
that's fine, so.
Yeah, so, and again, that's why I said, that's why I gave up the idea of a script.
Yeah, no, it's
You're
gonna
gonna
be,
present
it's
it to
gonna
a
be,
4th grader a whole lot differently than you are a bunch of Rotary.
yeah, it's gonna be a lot of interaction and have the kids be interested in participating.
Gotta be a lot more high energy perhaps
Yep,
for
gotta
4th
be
graders.
Gotta
and
be
for- And
entertaining.
for Rotarian. Anyway, let's. Perhaps by the next meeting, I will have something set. It's looking to me like I'm not gonna be able to get into the school this year. And because we at the very least wanna walk out to the Jackson Memorial, we'll wanna do it when it's warm. And we can't count on what next winter's gonna be like either.
No,
So maybe shortly after school starts. Again, that's to be worked out with the teacher and where things are in the lesson plan. So on and so forth, but,
Would the library be interested in like a simple display? Since we have obviously a lot of pictures.
they probably would, just quick response, I'm not sure where they put it. But
Or the school could be another place that you could have like a street wall or something, with a little display.
I would be happy to talk to Libby.
Just thinking about what are the places that people go into, I know in some communities, the post offices are very cooperative on these things, but things are very difficult in the post office these days.
Yes, and there's not a lot of, in our particular.
Yeah, there's not a
Design
good place to
post
put it.
office.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of open wall space.
People love looking at the photos in here. Like, if they come into this room, they're like, whoa, look at all this,
Yeah.
People linger. I wonder if there's, we have a couple maps on the wall with like zoning. wonder if we repurpose one of those walls as a history display at City Hall. Because you sometimes do the PowerPoint on the little TV above the fountain, but more people come in here per day than I ever would have expected. Per day water bills, to ask random questions.
Me too. There's a lot of people
So-
coming here.
If the library doesn't have the space, post office wouldn't work. City Hall is certainly an option too.
It's a good idea.
These are interesting things to think about, but, anyway, that's it for outreach at this point.
If people are interested, I'm always happy, well, I'm not necessarily happy to do it, but I'm always willing to set up like a little table at any local events. Filming fest, movie thing, not Fourth of July, it's too busy, but you know, if we wanted to have a little history table at any little events this spring or summer, we're probably not ready for it anytime soon, but that could be.
That would be a
an idea in the
definite
future, too.
place. I'm sure you'd have your walking tour bus
Where's that at?
at at the events, a booth.
We could,
It seems like if you're trying to sell the walking tour,
you know, we're selling it at the visitor centers. So,
Yeah, you know, people tend to like to, if you have a little table set up with information, you do get a lot of people just kind of walking up. The problem is most of these events, I would guess, are majority non-residents. And while it's nice to promote heritage tourism for visitors as well, I think our goal is to, based for this conversation at least, is to get to the locals, so maybe it wouldn't be as beneficial for that reason. Folks are interested, I'm happy to man a table at any point. Did it a few times in 2025 and 90% of people were nice.
and what were
You
you,
did very well if you got 90%.
what did you have at your table?
Well, once I did sort of just a comprehensive plan, sort of like, hey, come and ask me questions, here's a little survey, here's some things. And then another one was when the HDR engineers who are designing all the mobility improvements and the parking structure, once they had their initial like 15% design, they had a big rendering. So I was there to answer city questions and they were there to answer technical questions. And I'd say in 2 hours at that event, I talked to like 60 people.
Local.
I'd say, yeah, that was at like last year, the downtown ran like those 3 block parties, which were designed for locals. So I'd say maybe like 75% of people were locals and 25% were just visitors.
Well, you don't know how many visitors are thinking about moving here, so they want to know what
Right.
the plans are.
Well, and a lot of people have, you know, maybe don't come here that often. And now they're like, well, it's on the map now. Let's check it out. And then they want to know what's happening to see if it's a place they want to come back to, I guess.
Okay, well. Do we have any old business? Everything seems to be old business. It seems like.
I mean, it's historic.
Yeah, that's true.
We're about historic business.
Yes. Nothing else from me.
Okay, anyone else have anything? 10:05.